There comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that waiting for validation, for permission, or for the right time is a trap. That moment, when she stops waiting and starts leading herself, is when she becomes the CEO of her own life. A CEO doesn't just run a company, she runs a vision. And when a woman starts running her life with purpose, discipline, and compassion, everything changes around her. Being the CEO of your own life isn't about power over others, it's about mastery over yourself. It's about making executive decisions that align with your values, not your fears. It's about managing your energy, your emotions, and your environment with grace and strategy. It's realizing that you are the most important project you'll ever manage. She stopped chasing approval. She started approving herself. She stopped blaming circumstances and started creating opportunities. Every morning became a board meeting with her own mind, deciding what deserves her attention and what doesn't. She learned that leadership doesn't always mean loudness. Sometimes it means quiet confidence. Sometimes it means saying no to what doesn't serve her, even if that means disappointing others. Because real growth often requires discomfort, and real leadership requires solitude. She started investing not in stocks first, but in her peace, her purpose, and her personal growth. She realized that success is not measured by applause, but by alignment. The goal is not to do more, but to become more. And as she took charge, she learned something powerful. When a woman becomes the CEO of her own life, she doesn't just rise alone, she inspires others to rise too. Her leadership becomes contagious. Her courage becomes a culture. Her story becomes a strategy for others to follow. So, dear listener, ask yourself, are you the CEO of your own life or just an employee of your fears? Because the moment you start leading yourself with clarity, compassion, and conviction, your life will transform from chaos into purpose, from confusion into direction, from survival into success. Self-leadership is not about titles, recognition, or applause. It's about taking full ownership of your life. It begins the moment a woman stops outsourcing her power to other people's opinions. She realizes that no one else is coming to save her, fix her, or make decisions for her. That realization, though heavy, becomes her liberation. When she steps into the role of leading herself, she starts viewing her life as a company, where she is the CEO, the strategist, and the visionary. Every decision she makes becomes an act of leadership. Every challenge she faces becomes a test of her inner strength. Self-leadership demands awareness. It requires her to pause and ask herself, am I reacting to life or directing it? Many people live on autopilot, repeating the same mistakes, following the same patterns, and wondering why their lives never change. But when she begins leading herself, she stops drifting. She becomes intentional. She starts to see her habits, her thoughts, and her emotions as assets that must be managed wisely. She doesn't let her emotions drive her. She learns to sit with them, understand them, and use them to grow. Being the CEO of her life means she has to make tough calls. It means saying no when her heart whispers yes, but her peace says no. It means walking away from what's comfortable to walk toward what's necessary. She learns that leadership isn't about controlling others, it's about guiding herself with integrity. It's about showing up even when no one is watching. She realizes that excuses are just comfort zones in disguise, and that every time she blames, she gives away her power. So she takes it back. She begins each morning not by asking, "What will happen today?" but by declaring, "I flew for what I will create today." That shift from passive waiting to active choosing changes everything. Her mindset evolves from, "I hope it works out," to, "I'll make it work." Her challenges no longer break her, they build her. Her failures no longer define her, they refine her. And through every setback, she learns resilience, that quiet, unshakable strength that keeps her grounded when the world tries to shake her foundation. Leadership also means compassion. She doesn't rule herself with harshness, but with understanding. She gives herself permission to rest, to fail, to try again. She learns that discipline and kindness must coexist. Without discipline, dreams remain dreams. Without kindness, discipline becomes punishment. So she builds a balance between both, the gentle push of responsibility and the soft embrace of self-care. Most importantly, she learns that leading herself means living by values, not moods. She does what is right, not what is easy. She doesn't let temporary emotions sabotage permanent goals. She understands that consistency beats intensity, that progress is not about giant leaps, but steady steps. And so, she keeps showing up every day with purpose and patience. Self-leadership turns her into her own compass. It teaches her to trust her instincts, to listen to her inner wisdom, and to make choices that align with her truth. It's not a one-time act. It's a lifelong journey, a journey of becoming her own leader, guide, and motivator. When she truly embraces self-leadership, she no longer waits for life to give her direction. She creates her own path, and in doing so, she becomes the woman who leads not by command, but by example. There comes a turning point in every woman's life when she realizes she has spent too much time waiting for someone to validate her dreams, to tell her she's good enough, to give her permission to begin. She waited for the right time, the right opportunity, or the right approval. But the truth dawns one day. No one can grant her the permission she's been waiting for. The moment she understands that her purpose is her responsibility, not anyone else's endorsement, her entire life begins to shift. Purpose over permission means that she no longer lives by the expectations of others. She no longer measures her worth by how many people applaud her choices. She stops living as a reflection of other people's opinions and begins living as an expression of her inner calling. She learns that her dreams were placed in her heart for a reason, not for public approval, but for divine execution. Every time she second-guessed herself, She delayed her destiny. But when she finally chose purpose over permission, she unlocked her freedom. Living with purpose means living with clarity. It doesn't mean she has everything figured out. It means she's willing to take the first step without knowing where the second will lead. It's about trusting the vision, even when the path is unclear. The world may not understand her dream. It doesn't have to. The vision was not given to them. It was given to her. And so, she stops seeking validation from people who cannot see what she sees. She stops explaining herself to those who are not meant to walk her path. Choosing purpose also means embracing solitude. Because when you stop needing permission, not everyone will cheer for you. Some will misunderstand, some will doubt, and some will walk away. But she learns that walking alone is not loneliness, it's leadership. It's in that silence that she finds her strength. It's in that space that she hears her own voice, the one she had silenced for too long beneath the noise of expectations. Purpose over permission demands courage. The courage to start without certainty, to speak when your voice shakes, and to continue even when success seems far away. It's not about arrogance or rebellion, it's about alignment. It's about realizing that the cost of pleasing everyone is losing yourself. And she refuses to pay that price anymore. She learns that it's better to be misunderstood for following her truth than to be celebrated for living a lie. Every great transformation begins when she decides, I don't need anyone's permission to become who I'm meant to be. That decision doesn't make her defiant. It makes her devoted. Devoted to her purpose, her growth, and her authenticity. She starts to realize that when she honors her calling, she inspires others to honor theirs too. She becomes a living example of what happens when someone chooses inner conviction over external approval. Her life, once ruled by hesitation, becomes driven by intention. She no longer asks, what will people think? But instead asks, what will I think if I never try? That single question becomes her compass. She moves forward, not perfectly, but persistently. And every time doubt whispers, she reminds herself that permission is not something she needs. It's something she gives herself. Because the most powerful version of a woman is not the one who's been approved by everyone, but the one who has approved herself. She no longer seeks the world's permission to exist, create, or shine. Her purpose is enough. Her vision is valid. And her courage to act on it, that's what makes her unstoppable. Emotional mastery is the silent strength that separates those who merely exist from those who truly lead. It is not about suppressing emotions, pretending to be strong, or hiding pain behind a smile. It is about understanding your emotions, managing them wisely, and using them as tools instead of being used by them. For a woman who chooses to become the CEO of her own life, emotional mastery becomes her greatest asset. Because while intelligence and ambition can open doors, only emotional balance allows her to walk through them with grace. Every emotion, whether joy, Anger, fear, or sadness carries a message. But too often, people react before they listen. Emotional mastery teaches her to pause before she speaks, to think before she acts, and to feel before she judges. It's in that small pause that her power lies. When life throws challenges her way, she doesn't lose her ground. She takes a deep breath, steps back, and observes. Instead of letting emotions drive her decisions, she lets wisdom lead the way. A woman with emotional mastery doesn't avoid pain, she learns from it. She allows herself to feel deeply, but she doesn't let those feelings drown her. She understands that emotions are temporary, but their impact can be lasting if left unmanaged. So, instead of saying, "I can't help how I feel," she learns to say, "I can choose how I respond." That shift transforms her from a reactor to a responder, from someone who's tossed around by circumstances to someone who navigates them with calm control. Emotional mastery also means choosing peace over chaos. It's easy to be kind when life is gentle. It's much harder to stay composed when life tests you. Yet, that's where leadership grows, in the moments that stretch your patience and challenge your calm. She learns that not every battle is worth fighting. Not every comment deserves a reaction. And not every disappointment deserves to steal her peace. She starts protecting her emotional energy the way a leader protects valuable resources. Because she knows her energy shapes her reality. Mastering emotions doesn't make her emotionless. It makes her emotionally intelligent. It means she understands her triggers, respects her boundaries, and expresses herself with maturity. Instead of lashing out, she communicates clearly. Instead of bottling up, she channels her emotions into creation, purpose, and growth. She learns that tears can cleanse, anger can teach, and fear can motivate, if only she learns to listen rather than resist. Through this process, she discovers that emotional mastery is also about compassion for herself and for others. She realizes that everyone is fighting unseen battles. So instead of reacting with judgment, she responds with understanding. Her calm presence becomes her power. Her gentleness becomes her strength. She no longer matches the chaos of others. She maintains her own peace and lets it influence those around her. Over time, she becomes emotionally independent, no longer controlled by external circumstances or people's moods. Whether others praise or criticize her, she remains grounded. She doesn't need validation to feel valued, nor does she allow criticism to shake her worth. She becomes steady like a river, flowing with emotion but never losing direction. In mastering her emotions, she discovers true freedom. Because the one who controls her emotions controls her life. She no longer reacts to every storm. She learns to be the calm within it. And that calm, that quiet inner strength, becomes the foundation of her leadership, her confidence, and her peace. Every great leader, every powerful transformation begins with a decision. The woman who becomes the CEO of her own life understands that her choices define her direction. Each decision she makes big or small, carries the power to shape her future. She learns that waiting for certainty is a form of fear disguised as patience. Life never comes with guarantees, and every choice carries risk. But not choosing is the greatest risk of all. Decision-making power means taking responsibility for your life and trusting yourself enough to choose with clarity and conviction. In the beginning, she might have hesitated. She might have overthought every path, fearing failure or judgment. But as she grows, she realizes that indecision is its own kind of suffering. It drains energy, breeds confusion, and delays destiny. She learns that leadership doesn't come from always being right. It comes from being brave enough to decide and humble enough to adjust when needed. The power is not in perfection, it's in progress. She begins to see that every decision is a statement of self-respect. When she chooses for herself, she's declaring, "I trust my own wisdom." She stops asking everyone what they think before listening to her own heart. Because deep down, she knows the answers have always been within her. They were just buried beneath the noise of doubt and the opinions of others. When she silences that noise, her intuition becomes louder, and that inner voice becomes her compass. Decision-making power also means embracing accountability. Once she decides, she owns the outcome. She doesn't blame fate, people, or circumstances. She accepts responsibility with grace and learns from every result. Even wrong choices become lessons. Every mistake becomes a mentor that refines her vision. She understands that every decision, even the painful ones, contributes to her growth. Without decisions, there can be no direction. Without direction, there can be no destiny. She learns that not every decision has to be monumental. The small choices, how she spends her morning, what thoughts she entertains, who she gives her time to, all build the architecture of her life. Each moment is a vote for the person she's becoming. And when she makes those choices consciously, life starts aligning in her favor. She realizes that clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from it. The more she decides, the more confident she becomes in her ability to choose. Her decision-making power is also a reflection of her boundaries. She no longer says yes out of guilt or fear of disappointing others. She says yes because it aligns with her goals and values. She says no because peace is a higher priority than pleasing everyone. Every decision becomes an act of alignment, a way of saying, I choose what serves my growth, not my comfort. As she matures in leadership, she also learns the art of patience within decision-making. She doesn't rush under pressure, nor does she freeze in fear. She pauses, reflects, and decides with intention. She knows that some decisions require time, but none should be made from panic. She balances intuition with reason, emotion with logic, heart with mind. That balance makes her a grounded leader, steady, wise, and composed. Ultimately, decision-making power is not about controlling outcomes, but about directing effort. It's knowing that she may not control what happens next, But she controls what happens now. And with each decisive step, she builds a life that reflects strength, purpose, and clarity. She becomes unshakable, not because life gets easier, but because she has learned to decide her way through every storm. There comes a time in every woman's life when she realizes that saying yes to everything is not kindness. It's exhaustion disguised as generosity. She begins to understand that boundaries are not walls built to keep people out, but bridges that protect her peace, energy, and self-respect. Setting boundaries is not about rejection, it's about direction, deciding where her energy goes and who truly deserves access to it. It's one of the most powerful forms of self-leadership because it teaches her to love without losing herself. For too long, she may have believed that strength meant endurance, that she had to tolerate everything, forgive endlessly, and always show up even when her soul was tired. But as she grows wiser, she learns that true strength lies in discernment. It's in knowing when to give and when to guard, when to step forward and when to step back. She realizes that boundaries are not acts of selfishness, but of self-awareness. They are declarations that say, my peace matters, my time matters, my energy matters. Boundaries are how she teaches others to treat her. Every time she allows disrespect, neglect, or emotional chaos to continue, she silently communicates that it's acceptable. But when she starts setting limits with grace, not anger, she shifts the entire dynamic. People may not like it at first, especially those who benefited from her lack of boundaries. Yet she learns that their discomfort is not her guilt to carry. Protecting her peace is not cruelty, it's clarity. Setting boundaries also means learning the sacred power of the word no. It's one of the smallest words in the language, but one of the hardest to say, because she was taught to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, to put others before herself. But now she understands that every yes that dishonors her own needs is a betrayal of herself. Saying no becomes her way of saying yes to balance, to joy, to freedom. She no longer explains her choices to everyone. She no longer feels the need to justify her distance. Her peace needs no defense. Boundaries don't make her cold or distant. They make her clear. They create space for real connection, not forced obligation. When she defines her limits, she attracts people who respect them. Those who truly value her don't demand her energy. They appreciate it. And those who can't handle her boundaries simply reveal they were never aligned with her growth. She also realizes that boundaries apply not only to people, but to thoughts, habits, and environments. She stops letting negativity occupy her mind rent-free. She distances herself from spaces that drain her spirit. She stops engaging in conversations that diminish her purpose. She learns that emotional clutter can be as damaging as physical clutter, and peace is something that must be intentionally protected. Through this journey, she understands that boundaries are not about control, they're about preservation. They allow her to give from a place of fullness, not fatigue. They help her love others deeply without abandoning herself. She learns that those who respect her boundaries are the ones capable of real love. Because love without respect isn't love, it's dependency. And so she carries herself differently, not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence. She knows her worth, and her boundaries reflect it. Her time becomes more intentional, her relationships more meaningful, and her energy more focused. She no longer seeks to please everyone because she knows she was never meant to. Her goal is not to be available to everyone, but to be aligned with what truly matters. And in honoring her boundaries, she finds something priceless, peace that no one can take away. There comes a point in every woman's journey when she understands that her greatest investment is not in possessions, people, or prestige, it's in herself. She realizes that the mind she nourishes, the heart she heals, and the soul she strengthens are far more valuable than any material success she could ever chase. Growth becomes her currency, and every day is an opportunity to add value to her own life. She stops looking for shortcuts to success because she understands that anything built too quickly can crumble just as fast. True growth, like a tree, takes time, patience, and care. Investing in growth means she no longer views learning as something confined to classrooms. Life becomes her greatest teacher. Every experience, good or bad, becomes a lesson in disguise. Every challenge becomes a chance to evolve. She learns to ask herself not, "Why did this happen to me?" but, "What is this teaching me?" This shift in perspective transforms pain into purpose and setbacks into stepping stones. She stops running from discomfort and starts growing through it. Because she understands that growth never happens in comfort, it happens in challenge. She begins to feed her mind with knowledge that inspires and empowers. Instead of gossip, she seeks wisdom. Instead of comparison, she cultivates curiosity. She reads books, listens to voices that elevate her thinking, surrounds herself with people who challenge her to rise higher. She becomes selective with what she consumes, not just in food, but in thoughts, conversations, and environments. Because she knows that what she feeds her mind will eventually shape her life. Investing in growth also means nurturing her emotional and spiritual well-being. She understands that healing is a form of growth too. She takes the time to unlearn patterns that no longer serve her. The habits of overthinking, self-doubt, and people-pleasing. She replaces them with self-compassion, discipline, and purpose. She doesn't just focus on becoming successful, she focuses on becoming whole. Because success without inner peace is just another form of emptiness. She also learns that growth requires investment, not only of time, but of trust. Trust in the process, trust in her potential, and trust in the timing of her life. There are moments when growth feels slow, when nothing seems to move, when it feels like all her effort goes unnoticed. But she stays patient. She knows that roots grow before flowers bloom. In the Just because she doesn't see results doesn't mean growth isn't happening. Real transformation often happens in silence. Investing in growth also means being intentional with her circle. She no longer surrounds herself with those who drain her energy or limit her vision. She seeks conversations that expand her perspective and friendships that inspire her evolution. She learns that it's better to walk alone in the right direction than be surrounded by those going nowhere. Her circle becomes smaller but stronger. And perhaps the most beautiful part of growth is that it never ends. She doesn't wake up one day and say, "I've arrived," because she knows that the journey of becoming is infinite. Every season of her life brings a new version of her, wiser, stronger, and more grounded. She no longer fears change because she sees it as proof of life. She embraces growth not as a destination, but as a lifestyle. Through this commitment, she becomes a woman who outgrows her old limitations. Her confidence deepens, her wisdom expands, and her presence becomes her power. She no longer competes, she evolves. And every day, through small, consistent acts of learning, healing, and improving, she invests in her most valuable asset, herself. Success, a word the world often defines with numbers, titles, and applause. But as she grows into the woman who leads her own life, she begins to understand that success is not something to be measured by society's standards. It is something to be felt deeply within. She learns that true success has less to do with how much she earns and more to do with how much peace she holds. It is not about being seen by everyone, but about being aligned with herself. She no longer chases the illusion of perfection. She chases purpose, authenticity, and inner freedom. There was a time when she believed success meant being busy all the time, working harder, running faster, achieving more. But that race only left her exhausted, disconnected, and uncertain of what she was even running toward. One day she stopped and asked herself, what if success isn't about how far I go, but about how true I remain to who I am? That question changed everything. She realized that success without fulfillment is failure disguised as achievement. As she matures in her leadership, she redefines what accomplishment means to her. It's not the number of tasks completed, but the depth of impact created. It's not how much she owns, but how much she grows. She understands that comparison is the thief of peace, and that her journey cannot be measured by someone else's timeline. Every person's definition of success is different, and that's what makes it sacred. For her, success becomes personal. Waking up with purpose, sleeping with gratitude, and walking through life with peace in her heart. She learns to detach her worth from outcomes. Whether she wins or loses, her value remains the same. She stops measuring herself through external validation, likes, praise, or approval, and begins valuing the unseen victories, choosing kindness when anger feels easier, showing up when she feels like giving up, staying gentle in a world that can be cruel. Those quiet wins, she realizes, are the true indicators of success. In redefining success, she also learns the art of balance. She understands that ambition without rest leads to burnout, and achievement without joy leads to emptiness. So, she allows herself to pause, to breathe, to enjoy the simple moments. A morning cup of tea, a peaceful walk, a genuine smile. She discovers that slowing down doesn't mean falling behind. It means being present enough to truly live. Success for her also means integrity, doing what's right even when no one is watching. She knows that how she achieves something matters more than what she achieves. She refuses to compromise her values for validation or take shortcuts for temporary gains. Her success is built on honesty, consistency, and authenticity. And because it's built with integrity, it lasts. She begins to celebrate progress instead of perfection. Every lesson learned, every small step forward becomes a reason to be proud. She stops comparing her chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. She understands that her timing is her own and that real success unfolds in divine rhythm, not in haste, but in harmony. Over time, her definition of success evolves even more. It becomes about contribution, how her presence uplifts others, how her words heal, how her actions inspire. Success becomes less about what she gains and more about what she gives. She realizes that the highest form of achievement is becoming someone who leaves the world a little better than she found it. And in that realization, she finds peace. Because success, as she now defines it, is not a finish line she needs to cross. It is a state of being she creates daily through purpose, gratitude, and grace. She no longer needs the world to declare her successful. She knows it within herself. Leadership at its highest form is not about control, dominance, or authority. It is about compassion. When a woman becomes the CEO of her own life, she understands that strength and softness are not opposites, they are partners. True power is not in commanding others, but in connecting with them. Compassion becomes her leadership style, her way of bringing light to places darkened by indifference. It is the quality that turns her success into significance. She learns that compassion begins with herself. Before she can extend understanding to others, she must first heal the harshness within. She stops punishing herself for past mistakes, stops criticizing herself for not being perfect, and starts speaking to herself with the kindness she's always given to others. She realizes that self-compassion is not weakness, it is wisdom. Because when she forgives herself, she stops fighting herself, and that peace reflects in how she treats the world. Leading with compassion doesn't mean allowing others to take advantage of her kindness. It means seeing others through the lens of understanding, not judgment. She learns to separate behavior from the person, to understand that hurt people often hurt others, and that responding with empathy doesn't mean tolerating toxicity. It means leading with clarity and love, even when firmness is required. Compassion doesn't make her naive, it makes her noble. She carries this approach into every space she enters. At work, at home, and within her relationships. When others are quick to criticize, she listens. When others rush to blame, she pauses. Her calm presence becomes a reminder that compassion is a strength the world desperately needs. She leads not by demanding respect, but by giving it. Her kindness disarms defensiveness, and her empathy opens hearts that were once closed. People don't follow her out of fear. They follow her out of trust. She also learns that compassion is not just emotional, it's practical. It's in the small, everyday gestures that ripple into greatness. Checking on someone quietly struggling, forgiving without being asked, encouraging those who doubt themselves. It's in her ability to uplift others even while carrying her own burdens. She understands that leadership is not about standing above people, but standing with them, shoulder to shoulder, heart to heart. But compassion also requires courage. It's easy to harden your heart after being hurt. It's easy to stop caring when kindness is not returned. Yet she chooses compassion again and again, not because it's easy, but because it's powerful. She knows that bitterness builds walls, but compassion builds bridges. And while walls may protect you temporarily, bridges connect you permanently to people, to purpose, and to peace. Through compassion, she discovers influence far beyond authority. She inspires others to lead with the same grace, to replace judgment with understanding, competition with collaboration, and anger with empathy. Her leadership becomes a mirror in which others see their own humanity reflected. And as she uplifts those around her, she realizes that compassion is not about changing others. It's about being the change that reminds others what love looks like in action. Ultimately, her compassion becomes her legacy. She leads not through titles or achievements, but through the warmth she leaves in people's hearts. Wherever she goes, she brings light. Wherever she speaks, she brings hope. She understands that at the core of every successful life lies one essential truth: that the most powerful thing you can be is kind.